Headphones on, let's do this.
Hey, do you know of a podcast I can listen to that has nerd and comic books and stuff? I really can't find one.
I say, you ever heard of the Nerd Dome podcast?
And I'm spent. That intro gets me going every single time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nerd Dome podcast. I am not Luke Hunsaker. That is not your ears deceiving you. This is the Luke-free episode of the Nerd Dome podcast. I have no idea which number this is. It'll be whatever number last episode plus one. Today I am joined with my Validity Studios. Oh, classic Chris Hoffman, for those of you who need to hear the thing here, co-founder of Validity Studios. Also here with my Validity Studios co-founder.
The alliterative Andrew.
Yeah, wonderful. Great job. You're doing great, Andrew. And then also joined today by...
The traditional Uncanny Ryan.
The traditional Uncanny Ryan. Thank you so much, everybody. Luke, what are we going to make up that Luke couldn't be here tonight?
He was on his way home, and a truck pulled out in front of him with some unusual chemicals, and he got splashed in the eyes with some chemicals.
Yes,
just like he's always dreamed of.
He's always dreamed. and so kudos to that truck driver that we paid to pull out in front of him with all the nasty chemicals. Great job. It worked out exactly the way that but instead of getting a superpower, now he has leukemia. So
leukemia.
Leukemia.
Oh, that'd be weird, wouldn't it, if he got that? So Luke isn't here tonight, and so we're gonna make this horse and pony show ourselves. It can't be that hard. I watch these guys do it every week, so we'll figure it out as we're going along. But if that makes it seem like we're a disorganized mess more than usual, that is the reason why. So to start us off today, my favorite thing, we're going to talking about Star Wars, because I am the biggest Star Wars fan. You guys both know that everything that comes out from Star Wars it is this guy. We'll read it, we'll play it, we'll enjoy it. And everything that goes a little bit off the path, I feel like is like a breath of fresh air. The fandom gets all of this stuff, and I don't understand why they complain about it. It is like, if you don't like that side of the buffet, just don't go over there. You know what I mean? And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about the third episode of The Acolyte.
Yes. What did you think about it, Chris?
What did I have so many opinions about a thing I didn't watch. I did read about it. So I've heard what the arguments of the people who are displeased and the people who are pleased. But Brian, if you give us a quick synopsis. Well, so first two episodes, we have this is set in the High Republic.
Yeah.
Right. So this is years before the Luke Skywalker saga. It is a time when the Jedi were at full force in the universe, the enforcing laws. They're sort of like the legends we hear about in the original trilogy, saying like it was a gilded age for the Jedi being the peace in the galaxy. And it's a story about a set of Jedi who are starting to be assassinated by a mysterious person, and the Jedi and the former Jedi who go and try to investigate the goings on and see if they can stop the killings. Is that about good to where people are going to come in on episode 3?
Yes. So as we talked in the last time we talked about it, we discussed and as Chris said last time, one of his very favorite things is telling stories through flashbacks. And so, as predicted, this is a flashback. This episode is to what happened with these twin sisters on their home planet before they got separated and each other presumes dead. So it doubled the amount of Carrie Ann Moss. So literally doubled. So that made me a little happy. And yeah. So we do get some more origin story. We get some more backstory about what happened with these kids. And so the two children actors. So as an adults, they're played by the same actor. As kids, they're played by different actors. Very, very, very similar looking, but not identical twins. And it tells their story about what happened up to the point where they got separated, and what the Jedi's role, each of the Jedi that the bad sister is after, what role they had, and how it all went down. So it's kind of the synopsis.
Wow. So we got a couple of controversial takes in this episode, Andrew. So what were the controversial takes? Do you know what the
what the Wookiee Jedi doesn't do shit yet, right? Like is that the controversial take? It's like they're gonna set that up, keep dangling that in front of us. Go another episode. Is that the controversial take, or is there something else?
So the controversial takes, the two that I read, and like I said, you guys correct me if these are incorrect, because the Star Wars fandom's so reasonable and articulate about anything that's upsetting them in the fandom, right? And so, from what I understand, that it's either like directly said or implied that the twins are a production of the Force, a la Anakin. That there's not really a progenitor being. They have manifest through the power of the Force.
Yeah, I think they explicitly say it.
They explicitly say that?
Yeah. There is no they are not created via the traditional reproductive methodology. They do explicitly say that.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Wars mythology, they haven't really explicitly in the on-screen media say how Anakin came to be. Mm-hmm. In the extended media and the books and stuff, they kind of go into insinuate that Sidious's master had some hand into creating this being one way or another, and it kind of or it had some hand in doing some dark Sith magics, and as a equal and opposite reaction, Anakin was created. Kind of insinuates a bunch of stuff. What this episode kind of does is insinuates that this this Force witch tribe, a la the Dathomiri witches, but probably not the Dathomiri witches, maybe probably a different sect of Force worshiper religion things. In the books and comics of the High Republic stuff that they came out with the last few years, they explore and introduce a whole bunch of Force religions, like groups that are around in this time period. Like the Jedis do not have the monopoly on Force doctrine at this period in time, and so this group of and they call themselves witches. There's a Zabrak lady that biologically carried the children, and then there's this other lady who is the leader of this group that says that she created them, but it doesn't really go into anything more than that.
So perfect. Skimming here just a little bit. It's not. It seems like they are not explicitly saying that these are the witches of Dathomir, but logic sort of like takes you to that place to say, well, this was a thing that was. It's been in the books, been in several of the video games. These characters, and so it seems like is the logical conclusion that either they are or they are some sort of similar sect. And like you said, there's a bunch of different religions that have to do with the Force. The Jedi is just one of them that that's the one that we were introduced to in the original trilogy, right? And so that's the first controversy, is that people felt that had cheapened the origin of Anakin being special and being the prophesized one and being the one to bring the balance to the Force. And I that sort of doesn't I don't know. It sure seems to be like following the tradition of Star Wars in just repackaging in a previous idea. You know what I mean? Like another Death Star? That was in the third movie. You know what I mean? Like you didn't have another idea?
That famous George Lucas quote where he goes, and it's like poetry and they rhyme.
They rhyme. That's what this seems like. You know? Yeah. And it was another word you could use is repetitive. But that doesn't seem, I don't know. It could seem to like add to the fact that everything that was about Anakin with his prophecy of bringing balance to the Force was just Qui-Gon Jinn reading too much into the doctrine, right? You know what I mean? Like maybe he was just wrong. And that's not exactly where this maybe it was self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I don't know, that doesn't bother me. It's a big space world. Like and the fact that there's a whole bunch of different people that have takes on the Force, whatever, you know what I mean? That's fine. I think it's weird that they like veer off into something when they haven't fully explored something that's already in the universe, right? But I don't know, this doesn't generate the anger in me that some things do. This is what I looked at and I was like, this is what you're mad about? I don't feel like this is what you should be mad about. And then the second one is you alluded to it here with the witches coven here who see the Force differently. Rather than seeing it as a force that surrounds and binds us, they see it as a thread, I understand, right? That you can pull on. And that's how they perform sets like magic, like through the Force. Is that correct? Also doesn't seem like a thing to get really mad about. I don't understand, you know. It is I don't think they've fully explored just everything that's possible in the light and dark side, but I also don't read a lot of the extended universe stuff, and they have had 30 years of comic books and novels where they have explored these things. So it may be the fact that some of the stuff I haven't seen on the main screen yet has been talked to death. Add into their fan fiction, which I'm pretty sure there's some good stuff of. Yeah, I don't know. These just seemed like just mad to be mad. You know what I mean? These two particular things I didn't agree with. It also didn't inspire me to go watch the episode either. So, big nothing burger. You guys aren't mad. Big indifference to the two controversies here.
I don't know that I'm going to keep going with this show, but I wasn't going to watch it anyway. And then the podcast is like, hey, we're watching this. Okay, sure. I'll give it a shot.
I totally am, because I am an avid consumer of all Star Wars things. I like it all. It's a flavor I can't get enough of. The Force thread thing, it's fine. I think it's fascinating when I think that's fascinating in real world when you have this concept of something and then there's all these different interpretations of the thing. And I think that's interesting how people can take one thing and have come to all these different conclusions when they see the exact same thing. The different, and I have been exposed to all of and sought out all of the different Star Wars media. So this idea of interpreting the Force as something different is not new to me. Especially with the High Republic stuff. That's a huge theme in the High Republic stuff, in that the Jedi are just a faction of Force users in the High Republic. And they have like the second phase of the High Republic stuff, which is a prequel to the first phase of High Republic stuff, is like they start off with a conclave on Jeddah of all the different Force religions and discuss kind of some rules of engagement kind of stuff about how they're going to coexist and get along with all of these different factions, and then and acknowledge that not one of them is the end all be all, and they can all coexist in the universe and get along with and allow each other space to practice what their beliefs are, which was an interesting idea. And the Jedi were the ones at that time that were kind of like the ones that were like, well, you guys believe that you're the most right, so you guys go away. So there's also the ones that end up being the antagonists of the High Republic stuff that came out before now are the ones that believe like whenever you use the Force, manipulate the Force, it's like the Force is a finite resource. So whenever you're using it, it diminishes it somewhere else in the galaxy. And so they want everybody to leave the Force alone, and they become like the bad guys in trying to go and take out all Force users and to leave the galaxy in balance and in harmony, to leave the Force alone entirely, because it's not something that should be touched.
They shouldn't force it. Got it.
Yeah. So the fact that it's a thread that because it's interesting, because it kind of reminded me as she's talking about it that you should leave it alone and embrace your destiny. And when you pull on the thread, it changes your destiny, which kind of made me think in the beginning that, if they're starting to use the Force, it changes your destiny. But then they start using it, they use it. But then I don't know. I'm excited to see where they go with that kind of idea. What exactly they mean by pulling the thread, because the one daughter wants to change her destiny and the other daughter wants to embrace what they believe her destiny to be.
I find it completely unrealistic that two different religions that seem to have almost the exact same beliefs want to kill each other to a man.
Yeah.
That seems
weird.
That seems strange. I wouldn't believe it. Whatever, science fiction, I guess.
There's a really cool scene in there too, where like the witches are like, oh, the Jedi are here. Let's make sure that we're keeping on the down low, because we don't want the Jedi to know that we have children, because the Jedi are after our kids. And the Jedi show up, and the Jedi are like, no, we're not after your kids.
But give me them kids.
But give us the kids. Because the kids need to be tested. And they're like, well, we don't want you to test our kids. It's like, well, you wouldn't deny the kids the chance to be tested, right? It's their right to be tested. And the one daughter really wants to be tested, and the other one doesn't. And they're like, well, we should at least test them, right? And it was kind of weird, because they're like, well, we're not going to take them unless they pass.
Yeah, so the Jedi are bad, child-stealing bad guys. Yeah.
We're going to feel less bad for them being destroyed in the prequels after this. We're like, maybe this was all just for fine. So that's a Ryan checking out the next episode. Andrew probably not. So we'll check in with you after the next episode, and you can tell us where that moves along. I'm kind of interested in checking it out now to be like, just to see it.
I am a sucker for world building, regardless of how good or bad you're telling the story. You're adding nuggets to the lore and the world, and that's what I'm always interested in.
What I thought was a funny thing that I saw on Reddit, where they were talking about that the people who are angry about the witches being maybe queer coded or something like that, thinking that like Dave Filoni is like angry in his office, like how dare they do this? And it's like it's part his idea. He's in charge of these things, right? Like he doesn't sit there and like the fact that those people think that he's on their side. Like at some point he's just gonna sweep in and be like, "How dare you ruin my Star Wars with all this nonsense?" You know? No, he's there. He's in the office. He's in the meetings. You know what I mean? And yeah, don't think that he does. He's on board. So, Ryan, put you on the spot here because you know the most about this. I asked you a little bit about this beforehand. You said you didn't know, but I want you to put some money on it here. So, the X-Men's Krakoa era lingers, according to CBR, lingers with a new mystery villain, the Krakoan. So if you had to bet, who could the Krakoan be?
Yeah, I don't know because I'm really not current. But
You're not current?
there was
I have a theory.
Oh yeah.
All right, so
Give Ryan a sec to think.
Go for it, Andrew.
You
all
think
right, so
you tell.
know Ahab from the Days of Future
Yes.
Present story and Excalibur. Well, he goes back to kill the X-Men on Krakoa
Again?
but finds them already dead. And then he gets eaten by Krakoa.
Sad for him.
Right? But Rory's magic or whatever. And so he merges with Krakoa and becomes like this man thing like entity that all it wants to do is hunt mutants, but it's a goopy swamp monster underneath its costume. Is that better than what it's going to be?
I distinctly remember that there was a headline that described Krakoa as the island that walks like a man. So now it really is the island that walks like
It's just the island. It's like they've got a picture of him in here. He's got like Cerebro on his head, but he's got like Magneto's cape, but he's got Cyclops's 90s belt that goes around, belt necklace thing. And he's got
Executioner. He's just stolen everybody's stuff. Or is he some sort of weird composite Superman?
It's like a composite. It looks like a composite Superman. So maybe it's like latent powers of the different heroes that got
the DC dude that has all the Amazo.
Yeah, could be like Amazo, right? I thought Chris was replaced by a Skrull at the top of the show by how obsequious he was about Star Wars.
That's how you're gonna know. That's when the body snatcher comes in, and you're gonna be like, "I have you now, pod person." Chris wouldn't have anything nice to say about new Star Wars stuff. So, if you want to find out if Ryan or Andrew are correct, you'll want to pick up the first issue of NYX, which is coming out on July 24th, which is Pioneer Day here in Utah. So we will have a holiday. We'll go check it out, and we'll see which one of you is correct. We'll have a first appearance. Hooray! Bunch of what do you call it? Variant covers on that one too. So the team in this one is Ms. Marvel, X-23, and 3 people I don't know who they are. Who is Prodigy.
Okay, from the new X-Men.
And Anol.
Yeah, also from the new X-Men. Yeah.
And writing history and Sophie Cuckoo.
Right, from one of the Cuckoo triplets.
And Emma Frost.
Clone.
Oh, it's just the one of them though. They've broken. They had a broke up the band. They're each doing solo projects now, but that means in solo project she joined NYX.
They brought them all back on Krakoa though, so it's the complete set again, not just the triplets.
Oh, well, there
Is
you
one
go.
of them still evil?
Evil.
Not any more than the other ones.
The normal baseline Emma Frost.
Yeah, they're all normal baseline Emma Frost.
It's always a little evil.
Yeah. All right. It is the 40th anniversary of the Robots in Disguise Disguise. The robots in disguise. The Transformers. Debuted 40 years ago, and I was going to ask y'all if you had a favorite Transformer.
I don't know what you mean.
Tell us about your favorite Transformer there, Andrew.
I like
Those of you who can't see.
Soundwave. Yeah. So
Has that always been your favorite Transformer when you were little into adult, or has it changed over the years?
Well, I always liked Soundwave, mostly from the cartoon. I didn't have one as a kid, but I did have one of these, a Rodimus Prime, which was my favorite one when I was a kid, because nothing says 80s more than Shag and Wagon for your Transformer. Yeah. But yeah, you can
Do you
go
like
to
it
a
before
lot.
he was a Prime?
Yeah. Hot Rod was cool, but I actually had this toy. And so but he's your Transformer if you want to go follow the Grateful Dead. But but I always wanted Soundwave here. And so this is the masterpiece one. So
nice.
The selling point on him is he can like actually push his own button here. Don't tell anybody because it makes God cry. But I
thought it was just making him mad. Like you push his buttons and then he gets all pissed off.
But like he can actually, yeah.
Oh yeah,
great. Yeah. So
does the little bird transform into a little cassette tape?
Yes, it does. And then he can actually fit several cassette tapes in him. It's a nice one.
Oh
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, can't recommend him enough. And unfortunately, they just shuttered the Masterpiece line for Transformers.
Wow.
Well, it's because
they've been going for a long time. They've kind of gone through everybody.
Kind of. They've got a signature series line or something that's kind of replaced it. They're cheaper, but they're similar quality. And so there's enough mass market demand for the classic stuff now. They're just making good ones. I've gotten all of these explanations lengthily told to me over dinner. My oldest, Alice, is a huge Transformers fan and a fan of the lore. And Ryan.
Nice.
And for our viewers at home, again. There we go.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, it is pretty great.
So Soundwave though now gets the award for worst at blending in now, because you'd be like, the hell is a cassette player sitting on this shelf for?
Antique store.
Yeah, right. That's the only places you can hide.
Derelict Radio Shacks.
Yeah.
Another one.
Goodwill.
Yeah.
Goodwill with a $700 price tag on it. You fit in right there. That's perfect. Ryan, I know you're the fact that you're not as jaded about everything kind of gives away that you're a tad younger than the two of us here.
Just a tad. I'm not much younger.
You're younger. You're younger.
In fact, this will probably be the last time you guys see and talk to me as a 30-something-year-old.
Man.
Okay. Congratulations for making it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but Transformers is never like really left, right? Like there was never a time where there's not new Transformers. So like what era of Transformers is kind of your era? Do you have one that you grew up with?
Yeah, I was really young when the original series was on there, but I was still a fan of it. My older cousin was really into that and got me into those that era. I remember watching the TV show. I love the movie. I love the movie. Unicron was one of my very first favorite Transformers. He was so cool. RC is probably my real first favorite Transformer as a little kid. My more adult favorite is Starscream, because I just love the second in command that's always trying to take over. I love that shtick. My favorite series, though, like my personal favorite series, is is Beast Wars. I loved Beast Wars, and that was like my older elementary school. I come home and watch it after school series that I got way into. I love Beast Wars.
Do you have a favorite character from that one?
Megatron. Yes.
The T-Rex, right?
Yes, the T-Rex. Its hand was the T-Rex mouth. Black Arachnia was always really cool, and even though I have a fear of spiders, she was a really cool character. The other cool thing too is then after they escape Cybertron or Earth and they get back to Cybertron, the next series, Megatron turns into a dragon, which is also really, really cool. Yeah, and I was super excited. I hate the new movies. I really don't like. The only one I like is Bumblebee. This last one with the Beast Wars, and I don't like that one at all either. But I don't like these movies. I don't know where I was going with that. I had a point with it, but then the distaste for the movies like wiped it out.
They're very
Soundwave was a friggin' satellite in the movies.
Yeah,
I hated it.
Yeah, I remember taking my kid at the time to that terrible. Which one was the one? Was it the first one where it had a lady that turned into a transformer?
That was the second one.
Second one.
Oh yeah, Shia LaBeouf's girlfriend was seductress was the was the transformer.
That scared the hell out of my kid. That was way too much at that point, where it was like, God, this is supposed to be a fun movie. You know what I mean? And just the terrible ideas. And they do the thing that always is the worst thing in any monster movie or any like giant robot movie, is when you sit there focusing on the people. I understand it's a lot cheaper to shoot Shia LaBeouf, you know what I mean? Like 2 blocks over from where he lives. But, you know, like, let's have some robots here, like the Godzilla movies, right? Let's see some monster. We didn't come here to see the guy who lives next door to Godzilla. Came to see the monster. Right?
Mm.
Yeah, except for in Godzilla -1.
No, that's
what I mean.
Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot of monster in that one, though, right?
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, it's about the same as a normal. We've been going through the old Godzilla movies. We watched Godzilla versus Megalon last weekend. It's a good one.
Rad.
All
right. Reveal for favorite here.
Yay, Sea Spray.
Sea Spray. And this was my favorite when I was a kid, because he's like well, mine is all jacked from being super old, but you can transform him like super easily. It was like one move here and then put him together. Oh, and now I'm too old to do it. But anyway, they made like not a masterpiece version, but like the nicer one of these. And there was like a bootleg one that you could get off of Tenmu where he was like this tall. And so I need to look around and find that. But when I was a kid, I did have a bunch of bootleg Transformers, because when Transformers first came out, they were cobbled together from a whole bunch of different Japanese toy lines, right? So it was like the Dinobots were from a completely different thing. Megatron was called Gunman or something like that in Japan. It was a completely different toy line. And Hasbro just said, produce some of these and put a sticker on it. And then the cartoon just put them all into the same universe. But then a bunch of the companies in Japan figured out, oh, hey, we still have the molds. We'll just, and the rights that they sold off were kind of dodgy. So they were like, we could still sell Jetfires, and they just don't have a sticker on it, you know? And so I did end up with a bunch of those, a bunch of bootleg ones when I was a kid. And they were all still really cool, though. Famously, there was the Shockwave that you could get from Radio Shack. That's almost exactly the same, but it's a different color, right?
He's gray. Alice has one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like a collectible within a collectible, right? Where there was a different thing you could get from there. So Transformers. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this new Energon universe thing, like the Hasbro shared universe. Seems like a good idea to have G.I. Joe fighting giant robots instead of terrorist organizations. They're not really the thing anymore. Right? and then they can do it like the Transformers
Cobra
versus
Cobra can just be aligned with the Decepticons.
Yeah, exactly. And bring in the Mask and Venom from that, and let's all get a ball in the sandbox.
And
you know
Rom.
what I mean? And Rom can show up at some point. Absolutely. Any of these characters. Hasbro, you own the My Little Ponies. Get them in an episode. Whatever. This is
My
all.
cousin was a big fan of Mask. I liked those toys a lot.
I did like. I didn't have a ton of Mask. I do have the Matt Tracker that they put out in the GI Joe line, where he's their vehicle specialist. Like Mask is just a division within GI Joe, which is like, is there someone that I just need to go talk to about this? Is there just one person in the licensing department? Like, are you just fucking sitting on this? Or I imagine there's two things. There's either the guy that's in charge of the Mask stuff is so dejected and like hates life so much he never brings it up in meetings that they could probably bring Mask into it somewhere, or there's a frantic dude. I imagine Rick Moranis in his prime, running around with papers falling everywhere, trying to get anyone at Hasbro to listen to him. And they're like, who fucking cares about Mask? So I think it's one of those two things, right? Because I imagine Hasbro is like a cartoon. It's not just a company that's actually way more worried about its shipping times than the actual toys it's putting out. That was actually Hasbro used to make way more money. I think it still is. They make way more money consulting on shipping times from China than they ever did on the toys. The toys is something that it's like they're really good at shipping things out of Japan and China, and so they just it's kind of what do you call it? It's kind of a side effect now that it's a toy company. It's a logistics company. Yeah, kind of interesting. So speaking of things that have been around for a while, it is also the 30th anniversary of well, I'll let you guys pick. Do you want to talk about Jurassic Park, or do you want to talk about like why nobody goes to movie theaters anymore? Or both? All right, Jurassic Park, 30th anniversary. Steven Spielberg classic, dinosaur movie. You've seen it, right? If not, you've heard about it. Jurassic Park. Somebody explained it to you?
Yes,
Hasn't seen it.
You've seen it. It's another property that seems like it's been around and hasn't really gone anywhere ever since its inception. There has been some sort of video game, toy line, board game, extended universe stuff for Jurassic Park. And so tell me about the was it like super important the first time you saw Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
Was it something that stuck with you as like a piece of cinema?
Yeah, the special effects still stand out. The use of CG versus the use of the in-person dinosaurs. Yeah, no, it was that was one of those big summer movies that we had to wait in line outside the theater for. Yeah, no, it's way better now. Now I don't have to go anywhere. It's lovely. And that's a perfect lead into our next subject.
Well, but speaking of the theater stuff, Jurassic Park was the rollout of THX, right? Or Dolby Surround. It was one of the you had to certify your theater. So years before Star Wars, George Lucas created Skywalker sound because sound is so important to the original Star Wars movie. Like 70% of what everybody loves about the original trilogy is the music and the sound. Shout out to Ben Burt. And the George Lucas was noticing that it was that there were a lot of theaters out there that had like one dangling speaker hanging off of the side of a screen that had like 5 or 6 holes in it, right? Because it's Tombstone and people are shooting their guns through the screen. And so there was like a certification program that theaters had to go through to play Star Wars, so that the theater is actually up to snuff and actually was allowed to play it there. And Jurassic Park was sort of the same thing. There was another sound technology that came out in movie theaters, and your theater had to get up to up to that standard to be able to show the movie. And so it was a huge push forward in theater technology because it was getting to the point again where it was movie theaters were like, hey, why would anybody come to the theater? Home stereos are getting really good. VHS is out. TV is pretty good. Why would someone come to the theater? And then there was this huge innovation because once again, Steven Spielberg wanted to make sure everybody was getting the same experience with the movie at the movie theaters. And so, it would another push forward in the technology for theaters was that movie. And I don't know if we've seen another movie that's either coming out or doing. There was a little bit of that with the 3D flash in the pan.
Yeah, Avatar.
Yeah.
I remember, in the little podunk town of Willard and Perry, where I grew up, when the new Star Wars came out, so episode 1, 2, and 3, the theaters had a problem in the little towns because they had to get like the digital movie projectors, play those movies because they had to get that updated technology or else they couldn't show the new Star Wars, and they had to show the new Star Wars because that was a big thing, and they were going to lose out on all that ticket money. So I remember that being a big thing when those came out.
I remember there was also when Jurassic Park premiered, there were a set of theaters that actually had like smoke machines installed or something. There was like jungle. It was like one of those, what's that movie, Matinee, with John Goodman, when they would have those
smell-o-vision and stuff like that.
Yeah, like smell-o-vision and the seats that would shock you, or the House on Haunted Hill when the skeleton would fly over the audience, right, at a certain point. And so I think there was something like that. It was like 10 theaters in LA, you know what I mean? It was something that came out there. But like you said, speaking of theaters, there was a Red Letter Media video that came out the other day where they were talking about the death of theaters, kind of. And so theater attendance took a huge hit during COVID. And as a matter of fact, just recently, one of the fan favorite chains of movie theaters, the Alamo Movie House chain, Draft House, thank you. They went out of business, right? Like they filed bankruptcy. And there are other movie theaters. Why there was a blip. They were excited about the Barbenheimer coming out, where there was an event where people were like, let's go see 2 movies in a day, and theaters are like, hell yeah, please see 5 in a day, please. That's amazing. Can we? And they're trying to combine any other 2 movies in a Barbenheimer way so that you will come see it. And then a couple of movies that, for no quality reasons, The Fall Guy that just came out in theaters did horribly, and watched it, and it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Did terribly. And what was the other one? There was an animated movie that came out right around the same time that was supposed to do well and completely flopped. But yeah, what do you guys still go to movie theaters a lot more than you did before? Are you heading back?
Nope. Last movie I saw in the theater was Beyond the Spider-Verse. No, Godzilla. It's Godzilla minus one. So it'll take something special. Get me back. Maybe Deadpool, but it won't be the first week.
Ryan?
The last time I went to a theater, I got call back to our previous topic. I actually got to go see the first 2 episodes of Acolyte in a theater.
Oh, wow.
One of my friends at work got one of the screening tickets to go see that. And that was a fine experience. I enjoyed that. I remember loving the theater experience. I love to go to the movies. And I don't know if it's because it's just a sign of me being old, or maybe I'm more irritable, or maybe people are more awful, or maybe I'm just a grumpy old man and kids these days. But I don't like going to a theater anymore. I've come to that conclusion. Like, people annoy the hell out of me. Like, I or maybe people have changed. Maybe I have changed. I haven't quite figured it out. But I can't abide like the kids playing on their phones the whole time, the parents yelling at their small children throughout the whole movie, the boomers not being able to figure out how to silence their phones, the people getting in and out of their seats the whole time, the families swapping seats the whole time. It drives me nuts the entire movie. And I don't enjoy that anymore. And I don't remember either. I just wasn't paying attention. I was so captivated by the movie, or it didn't happen.
It didn't used to be so bad. It didn't used to be so bad. I think Chris or somebody told me the other day, it's like all the people that are polite at theaters stopped going. Right? Because the only people going for a while were just the exceptionally rude and thoughtless, like you're describing. And it's like, that's certainly a contributing factor to why I don't go to the theater that often anymore. So, yeah, no, I hear you. I'm with you, Ryan. Yeah, I'm not. I've had enough bad theater experiences that. Yeah,
but I have found, like, if I am in a theater of like-minded people, like perhaps on an opening night of a movie that I'm super excited about. Maybe if I were to go on an opening night of Deadpool Wolverine, I might have an enjoyable time. When I went to that screening of Acolyte, I was in a room full of people that were super excited and super into watching that movie, and I had a great time. So maybe if I'm sticking to that kind of thing, I would recapture the experience that I'm looking for. But if I'm going like with the regular peasants that are out there these days,
muggles.
I am not having a good time.
Yeah, this slowly, I think it maybe happens over an amount of time, because I'm kind of like, I'm further down that road that you're going right now, because it was like I felt like when I was a kid and when I was younger, I loved going and seeing movies. I'd see the same movie several times a day.
Yeah.
Right. And just because it was fun, and I would go see it with my friends, and I don't feel like I was the one that was being rude. I don't think you just like change. Maybe I was, but maybe you just changed the roles. Maybe we were a lot more rude when we were kids. You know what I mean? But I don't think so, because I remember it bothering me then too. I remember people talking when I went and saw Nightmare Before Christmas and saying something to them and them not changing their behavior. And so that's the other thing that you kind of learn, is that, well, saying something is just going to make them want to do it more, because it's the type of person who's going to do that. And then you can't expect, people are like, well, how come there's no ushers? You're going to say the kids that work there for minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to come in and start telling people, be quiet. They're not going to do that. Incite violence.
They're not paid enough to do that.
No, not at all.
Or trained enough to do that.
No, and I wouldn't expect them to either. You know what I mean? Like, there's too many stories nowadays where there's like a security, like just a regular employee at a Walmart who's trying to keep the peace there and gets shot over it. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine what it would be like to go into a theater. But also theaters, they kind of did this to themselves as well. Like we talked a lot about the direct market in comics, where they can see, we saw their decline. It's just been a very slow one for a long time, right? Theaters, it's the same thing. We've seen this for years, because like, what was the huge innovation? Because movie theaters used to have a captive audience, right? Like, that was, if you wanted to come see the new movie, you had to come to the theater. You couldn't do it anywhere else. And now there's so much media that you can consume, and competing types of media on in video games, and that are way better nowadays. VR that's getting way better nowadays. And then what was the innovation that theaters did originally to try to get you back into the theater? They put in recliners. They tried to make it more like your house. Well, if it's like my house, why don't I just stay at my house? There's nothing now that you've made an innovation like we'll bring you food, and it's like, yeah, you bring me like insanely overpriced food, And so a thing on this. So used to be years and years ago that studios used to own theaters, and they would show only their movies. So that was the Paramount studio system. Is you had Paramount studios that would make movies, and you would go see them in a Paramount theater. You didn't see any other movies in that theater, and the government decided, hey, this seems like a terrible idea. Like we should regulate this to make sure that there's competition in these theaters. So they made a law that said you can't do that anymore. And it's from what I understand, it's actually where we got the word blockbuster from, is because that was you'd get the blocks of movies that would be shown at the theater, and the blockbuster was the one that would do better than all the other ones in the block. So there you go. So now that law has sunset. About 3 years ago, that law is sunset, and so now studios could own a theater chain if they wanted to. And so it is speculated that they're just waiting for them to go even more out of business, so that when the theater's being sold, it's a fire sale. And then it will go to, like Sony buys Cinemark, and whoever else buys the Larry Miller theaters and stuff. And then that's the only movies. Disney buys one of them, and then you go see Disney movies, and they're only in that theater when a new Disney movie comes out. And I'm of the feeling that if that was the case, that they felt they could make money, they would do it yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's too many bean counters in all of those corporations that just look at that sort of thing, and when the spreadsheet says it's go time, it's just kind of go time, right? And so, but I don't know. How do you feel about that, and what do you think is going to happen?
Probably feels like
giving you a lot of information.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like, we've already seen what the studio system does and the monopoly it creates. And so we've seen deregulation of all sorts of media over the last 30 years. Why not this? Right? Let's go completely off the rails. Whatever.
Right. Yeah. Maybe for the first couple of years, because I mean, like the deregulation of children's television is what gave us our favorite Transformers, right? Because they were allowed to make 30-minute commercials with barely any educational content in it. So maybe there'll be a golden age where it'll be like they're going to be fighting with each other to put out better movies to put them in the theater, and maybe they'll bring down the price of the concessions. I know I'm
not going to hold my breath on any of those things.
I should change my name tag on here to Pollyanna, right? And be like, oh, hey, it's going to be great. Wonderful. So we'll see what happens there. So for the end of the show here, I want to know if anybody's got any reviews that they'd like to do. I have some, but I'll open the floor to y'all.
Nope. I want to hear yours, Chris.
You want to hear? Ryan has one.
I do. I have one. Okay. I read something. So for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say brother-in-law, gave me a book, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the podcast a long time ago when it came, not like a long time ago, but when it first came out, we mentioned it on the podcast. But Keanu Reeves made a book, and it's called Berserker, and it's spelt Berserker, but without any vowels, no vowels. And I read it, and I didn't have high hopes, and I got really into it. I was surprised. It is hyper violent. It is very visceral art. But it's also a very interesting story. I was thinking it was just going to be hyper violent and nothing else. But I read the first trade. It's issues 1 through 4, I think. I was under the impression it was going to be the whole shebang. And I was surprised when it just stopped.
It was partial shebang.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
Shebang.
Yeah. The whole thing is 12 issues, and so I've only read the first 4. But it is about this dude in present day that, come to find out, he has lived for a very, 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 very long time. And he is immortal. He's not quite sure why he's immortal. He's currently working for the government as a soldier for hire, kind of a mercenary, and he has this compulsion for violence, and he has some superhuman abilities when he's in this super violent mode, almost like a Dungeons and Dragons berserker rage kind of thing, where he gets powers when he goes into this berserker rage. And the story unfolds as he's working with this, for lack of a better word, psychiatrist who's working up this drug cocktail to try to help him recover some memories that he is missing / suppressed, to figure out why he is the way he is and where he came from. And that's kind of the story. And so as he's going through these battles and flashing back and kind of having these kind of like therapy couch sessions, and as he's getting these drugs tailored to him, it's kind of revealed that what he wants, what he's giving the government this super soldier. The government wants to figure out how to make more super soldiers, and what he wants is to figure out how to not be a super soldier anymore. He doesn't want to be like, he's not suicidal. He just doesn't want to live forever anymore. And so that's kind of the story. And I got really interested in kind of this character and this origin and why he is the way he is and what he's gone through. But yeah, also hyper gory art. The writer is Keanu Reeves and Matt. It's spelled Kindt.
Kint.
Yeah. And then the artist is Ron Garney, does the pencils and inks. So it was pretty good for the first 4 issues. I'm interested in reading more.
I bought that trade for my wife when it came out, and so I will have to borrow it from her and check it out. She digs it when it's a pop culture person who makes a comic book, or if it's one about like a musician. So yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Okay, so here's the deal. I read all of the as of last week, I read all of the Marvel Blood Hunt tie-ins. So
this is the vampire thing, right?
This is the vampire thing. And so, spoiler alert, this is going to be full of spoilers. I'm not going to try to dance around this one because I read all of them and I want to do a quick review of each of them. So the basic premise of the crossover here is that Dracula, who is in charge of his own vampire country, is being so Dracula is in charge of his own vampire country. Suddenly, every superhero and villain that has anything to do with the Dark Force explodes in the Marvel universe, and the Dark Force comes pouring out of them like a torrent and blocks out the sun. In a coordinated attack, all of the vampires that are still all around the world that are not part of the vampire country attack and try to start taking over the world. And the all of the Marvel superheroes are taken unawares by this surprise attack. Everyone obviously goes, well, if it involves vampires, it's probably Dracula. But Dracula is not behind this nefarious scheme. It's Count Nefaria because it's a nefarious scheme. I'm just kidding. It is not. The Avengers go forth to try to figure out who is calling forth all of these vampires, and in a fight with the vampires actually defeat and turn several of the Avengers into vampires, which are Black Panther is turned into a vampire. Doctor Strange is turned into a vampire, and they fight their way through this gauntlet of bad guys to try to find out who's behind it, and it turns out to be Blade. Ooh, oh, didn't see that one coming, did you? So it's Blade, who now has a Professor X like telekinetic link with all of the vampires, and who's telling them how to actually pull off the plan that he has, right? And so then it breaks down into all the different books where they're dealing with the different vampire threats in their own book. There's the main book, Blood Hunt, which is where the Avengers are fighting the main story, and then there's all the offshoots, which includes Amazing Spider-Man, Blood Hunters. Blood Hunters is sort of like Marvel Comics Presents. It's a compilation. What do you call it? Andrew, help me out here. Anthology. Thank you. So it's an anthology that includes a story about Hawkeye, one about Dagger from Cloak and Dagger, and Man-Wolf, John Jonah Jameson as the space Man-Wolf. There's the Blood Hunt diaries, which they're just talking about making the book. Dracula, the actual Dracula Blood Hunt, where Dracula teams up with Blade's daughter to try to figure out what's going on, because he's like, hey, this isn't me. You need to help me stop this, because they're just going to try to kill all the vampires, and that's not exactly what I was looking for here. Strange Academy, which is a bunch of new younger characters. It's sort of like a Hogwarts in the Marvel universe. There's a bunch of magic user kids who are learning how to use their powers, and Brother Voodoo is like the principal of the school. And one of them is a vampire, one of the characters, and she's been hiding that she's a vampire from the other characters. And so as this attack happens, all of the other characters talk about how much they hate vampires, not knowing that one of their friends is one. The Black Panther one, which he tries to go into the Black Panther, not Styx. There's what's the Black Panther god?
Bast.
He tries to go into the and they kick him out right away. You're a vampire. Get the hell out of here. You don't want any of this. The Midnight Suns, which is I love Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider. That is my favorite one, and it's dumb. It's Danny. They don't even. Nobody seems to be. Everybody seems to be on a side quest, right? Like he's on some sort of side quest. As a matter of fact, the person who comes and gets him, it's a character that I don't know. They're like, hey, we need to go do this before we go take care of the vampires. It's like, you just have a different story. There's nothing going on here. And then, of course, they can't just have a Danny Ketch story, because they're like, well, if it's Ghost Rider, we don't want to leave out all the Johnny Blaze fans. So Johnny Blaze shows up, even though he doesn't have any powers. He has a shotgun that shoots hellfire, which I assume he could just hand to Danny. And so then he would be Ghost Rider with a shotgun, which is fine. I would be fine with that, but so that one's going on. Wolverine, you think that'd be really fun to watch him fighting a bunch of vampires, right? He seems equipped for that. He was one for a while, so he knows how they think. But this ends up being, again, another side quest story where they're driving around and they're fighting FBI agents who have become vampires. The Union Jack one is actually pretty cool, because it's taking place in England. And at one point, and he fights vampires anyway, like that's kind of his deal. So it's a Blade type character, only jolly old England guy. And Union Jack has like a really cool look, right? Like his costume is super cool. I'm always a sucker for someone with a faceless mask, right? And ends up that they find out that he's got Baron Blood, the vampire, and he's got him chained up in a vat of blood in his basement. And so you get to find out why he's not a part of and he's got him chained up, and he's got stakes through Baron Blood's eyes, so he doesn't try anything. You stay here. And so it seems like a big nothing burger. It's the Amazing Spider-Man one goes nowhere, because he ends up teaming up with oh my gosh, who is it that he teams up with here? The Lizard and Misty Knight to try to find Morbius to see if he can help with the vampires, because he's vampire adjacent. He's not actually like, I don't know where his specialty is going to be coming from. He's like, are they living vampires? No, Morbius. And he's going to be like, well, fuck, I can't help. That's not my specialty, right? But they did in issue number 2, they did mention that it is Morbin time, and so I feel like that's something that's requisite anytime that Morbius shows up nowadays.
They literally use the word "it's Morbin time."
Yeah, there's a Reddit, you can see it on there. He says it's Morbin time, and he's like, shut up.
Is the cover a snake eating its tail?
Right. This is the eat your shorts man of the of the 2024s. So Yeah, you know what? I was like, I'll read all of these. Let me jump in both feet. You know what I mean? And check out this summer crossover and see what's happening in the main title here. And man, and it's a bunch of characters I really like. I love Misty Knight. I love Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider. The most compelling of all of these stories was the Man Wolf one, because it is J. Jonah Jameson, right? Like the publisher of the Daily Bugle, and perfectly cast in all of the Spider-Man movies. He's it's actually him and his son, who's the Man Wolf, John Jonah Jameson, who are fighting the vampires, but the vampire fighting is sort of secondary to this like father-son discussion that they're having. And J. Jonah Jameson keeps trying to call Spider-Man because he was mayor of New York for a while, so he just has Spider-Man's phone number, and he's sitting there leaving voicemails for Spider-Man, blaming him for the vampire infestation. It's like, I'm sure this is your fault somehow. And he ends up with like a bag of steaks that he's like wooden steaks fighting the vampires, not like, rare steaks from the store, but fighting the vampires. And so that one was actually a fairly compelling story. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to keep going with these, and I'll let you know how Blood Hunt is going. There's a Jubilee one that came out this week, so I will read that one for next time. And yeah, we'll see where this goes.
I like Jubilee vampire stuff.
She was a vampire
was
for a while,
very
interesting,
right? Interesting part of her life.
Yeah, so like that's yeah, I think that's interesting. That seems like an interesting take, but this seems like the problem with the mandatory summer crossover, in that, well, everybody come into the conference room. This is the summer crossover. Involve your character somehow, and then apparently they don't ever talk again about, well, because like if they don't want people to just buy the Blood Hunt comic and not know what's going on, right? And then, but they don't want the crossover to take over Spider-Man to the point where you stop buying Spider-Man. So it's still kind of continuing the story that's been going on. But this has been, I feel like, the problem with the Marvel crossovers for a long time. I don't know. What do you guys think?
All Marvel crossovers pale in comparison to Atlantis Attacks.
That's your favorite one?
Sure.
Perfect.
So is it that they were on a side quest already, and that the vampires got wrapped up in their existing side quest, or they got assigned a side quest when they joined the vampire shenanigans?
The Wolverine one starts with him just drinking in a bar. He knows there's vampires. He knows they're like taking over the world, and he's like, well, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't one of those things where it starts with him fighting. He's just out fighting people. He's like kind of waiting for the fight to get to him. And it's like, it feels like he's watching it on the news. You know what I mean? And it was like, wow, this seems like, and it's not for like, oh, I'm waiting here because I know that this location is a hotbed for a vampire. I have some sort of latent vampirism in me, and I can hear the whispers of Blade talking, so I know if I'm right here, I can be doing the most good. That would have made more sense. This is just, he's there, and then they come to attack him, and they fight him with like a microwave car. It's one of those new like microwave military trucks somebody paid a contractor to make a microwave truck that cost $10 billion, right? But he's like, oh, my healing factor, it's cooking me too fast. It's like, nah. So, yeah, and he teams up with, oh, gosh, I don't even remember this character's name. She's a vampire hunter from England.
Elsie Bloodstone.
Elsa Bloodstone?
It's not, though. I know her. It's this other character. And I'm like, who are you? Yeah, Elsa would have made sense. She shows up in the Cloak and Dagger, or in the Dagger story. That's where she shows up. This one, what is her name? It is. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Here we go. Yeah, I have no idea. She's got like a cross on her chest and has vampire stuff. Has been fighting him forever and whatever.
Is she a vampire?
No, she is not a vampire. She's from, oh gosh, she's French. She's French.
Oh, is she from the old Hellblazer comics? Like the Warren Ellis stuff?
I had her name because I remember telling you when I first read this story, I'm like, have you ever heard of this person? Is she from something that I don't know?
Elizabeth Nikos? No, she's Greek.
Maverick shows up in this one, so if anybody is like a huge 90s comic fan. Oh, Night Guard.
Night Guard.
You know, your favorite character, Night Guard.
Helps adjust your teeth so you don't grind your teeth.
Yeah. That's the one. Yeah. Night Guard and Invisalign. They straighten up your outside the body bones. Yeah, that was like, this crossover you've been waiting years for. Wolverine and this person. Thank you. So anyway, there you go. There's Blood Hunt. Go get all of them. If Marvel's listening, I recommend everyone purchase 2 copies of each of these. All right, I think that's everything, and like we're pretty close to time. So do you have any closing ideas? Anything that the floor is open for you.
No, I'm good.
Perfect.
Let's end this hoedown.
Let's end it. So you can find Validity Studios at validitystudios.com. You can also find us on most of the social medias. Instagram is the most populated one, but go ahead and follow all of them. It always helps us out. If you are so inclined, you can check out whatnot.com on Monday nights, 7 p.m. Mountain, and you can come and interact with me as I try to draw something that looks halfway decent on blank covers. If you want something that looks halfway decent, let me know and we will work something out for you. But Andrew, Ryan, anything else that you want to say here? I'm going to forget all of the sign-offs here. What are all of?
I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah. You may now exit the dome.
Exit.
You may now egress the dome.
Fuck responsibility.
Yeah, I could see you the whole time.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
Oh,
shit, I messed it up.
Oh, God.
Man, Luke really ties this all together, doesn't he?
He's like your rug.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to listen to a better episode, listen to the previous one or the next one.
Yeah. We miss you, Luke.
We miss you. All right. Good night.